Ahoy, crew. Wanted to drop by today just to share a brief update on the state of the podcast, what kind of sailing shape we're in, what lies ahead, and really what my main aims are for the near future. As you no doubt know, it's been a fair while since we concluded Series 2 of the podcast, which would be episodes 21 through 40. The next episode that I am going to release will be a recap of Series 2. Pretty similar to what I did in between Series 1 and 2, which is a long ways back now also. I want to do this recap partially because I think it would be helpful to distill everything that we covered in Series 2 down into a reasonably sized look at how maritime and naval developments occurred in the years that led up to and then during the Greco-Persian Wars. That might be a tall task. I'm sure that was probably your first reaction. It's been my fear also. But it is the goal anyway. I do think that taking that approach will allow us to boil things down into major themes, and it should help us connect some of the dots that might have been left hanging during the original release of all the episodes that made up Series 2. There's the added benefit that it might just be a good way to reorient both you as the listener and me as the talker to just where we are in the podcast and in our jaunt through the historical timeline and our look at maritime history and naval history and development. From there, I think it will be really easy to then just segue straight into the start of Series 3, right from our recap of Series 2. And that is what I have on my agenda at this point in time. As far as timing, I'm going to post Series 2, the recap episode, in about a week. I'm aiming for November 15th. Then from there, I've been working hard to get a game plan together so that we can have 2 new episodes each month, or roughly a new episode every 2 weeks, 14 to 15 days. A schedule like that for releasing new episodes, it's really been a long-term aim of mine. Though, as you no doubt are aware, it's one that I have fallen short of often, at least several times now. However, a consistent schedule with that type of timing, I think, is going to just be the sweet spot for a podcast like this that is a narrative history which aims to progress chronologically. The reality, though, as you no doubt are aware of too, is that more frequent release will mean episodes that are a bit shorter than the lengths to which some of the recent episodes especially have begun to stretch. There are, of course, pros and cons to either side of the debate about what's a good episode length. I've talked to many of you who come down on either side of that debate, but the reality is I've always wanted to get stuff out more consistently, more frequently. I think it will help me keep a ball rolling, and I think it helps keep you as the listener more engaged and invested as well. That's really my main goal then at the end of the day today, to get episodes out more consistently, even if that means that they are a bit shorter. So then, November 15th, that's my aim to have the Series 2 recap posted for all of you, which would then mean that around December 1st, I'm going to launch into Series 3, which will be our discussion of the Peloponnesian War, some of the interlude material there, and some of the other events that were taking place around the Mediterranean Sea that may or may not connect to the war, but still fit into that time frame of our timeline. The Peloponnesian War, of course, has a whole lot to do with naval battles, naval conflict, technological development, and there's a lot of historical sources for us there, but I'll try to keep things moving and not get too bogged down in any of the numerous other interesting elements that go along with that conflict there. It might be difficult, but I'll try. I anticipate then that the first episode in Series 3, it would be episode 41, it's going to involve a bit of laying the groundwork, so to speak. Discussion of things like sources, historiography, just setting the stage so that we can launch into the players and the events of the war that occur directly thereafter. I've got an outline and I guess a research bank that has been gradually building up. So as I continue to fill that out, I will also aim to publish a schedule of anticipated topics that we can look forward to in the near future, at least on a rolling basis. I think that will give each of us, you and me both, just a rough idea of where we're headed and what the focus might be on any given week or episode to come. I think this approach is beneficial. It can, of course, be a little limiting. So I'm going to try not to limit things too much so that we get too formulaic. There will be a degree of change baked in, I think, depending on just what book I happen to be reading on a given week, what factoid I might stumble across, which will lead down a given path. Hopefully you have a sense of what I'm trying to outline there. We'll be going in a general understood direction, but there will be a little bit of, quote, subject to change caveat with an asterisk there. Hopefully nothing too drastic, though. Finally, I do want to thank all of you for your continued support, your interest in this project. As I've said a number of times now, it's always humbling to have so much support and interest around something like this. And I really do want to recognize that by just beginning to deliver material more consistently. Until next week rolls around when we have the recap episode, I did also want to mention that for Halloween this year, 2021, I did also post a reading of a horror novel. In the end, that novel stretched to slightly over 6 hours long. So the reality is that it wound up being about an audiobook, a short one, at least. I posted it in 4 separate parts of about 4 chapters in each part. So if you ever are in the running to just dive into a story about shipwrecked sailors who drift in their lifeboats into a bizarre and terrifying land filled with sea monsters and plenty of other weirdness, definitely do go check out the 4-part episodes that make up The Boats of the Glen Carrig, which is a horror novel that was written by an English writer named William Hope Hodgson. It's an interesting one, but I think you'll enjoy it if you have the time and if that strikes your fancy. Well, all that said, you can also always check out our social media pages if you are also wanting to keep in the loop of what episodes are upcoming, what I'm working on. I've kind of gotten tired of Facebook, but definitely check out Twitter. I think that's a good place. I'll be posting there more often. Otherwise, thanks as always, crew. I'll see you back here next week. Until then, fair winds and following seas from me here at the Maritime History Podcast.